Ever feel like your partner is all about PDA at home, but then poof, like a secret agent when you're out?
Like they suddenly forget you exist.
Yeah, exactly. It's a total head scratcher.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like, what is going on here?
So many of you wrote in about this very thing. We're calling it the private love paradox.
Yeah, it's so interesting how love can be so complicated, you know?
For sure. And thanks to all your amazing source suggestions, we're going deep on this today.
Yeah, getting to the bottom of this.
We'll explore why this happens, how it can mess with relationships, and tips for figuring it all out. And just a heads up, even though the sources mostly say she, it's for everyone, no matter how you identify.
Absolutely. This is about relationships, not genders.
So first up, why the Jekyll and Hyde Act? Why all the lovey-dovey stuff at home, but then crickets in public?
Yeah, it's like they turn into a different person.
One big reason the sources point to is fear of judgment. Maybe they're worried about what their friends or family will think.
Oh, yeah, totally. Or becoming the next viral meme. Right. But, it gets deeper than that. It shows how society shapes what's okay in relationships. Like how much PDA is too much. It's different everywhere you go and even changes over time.
Wow, it's true. I never thought about it like that.
It's like all these unspoken rules.
Okay, another reason our sources mentioned is shyness or introversion. Makes sense. Not everyone's a fan of the spotlight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
PDA can be straight up terrifying for some people.
Right, I get that.
Like you can totally adore someone and still not be down for a makeout session in the middle of Times Square,
Hard pass. I'd rather just chill on the couch with my person. Speaking of personal stuff, our sources also brought up past trauma. That's a heavy one.
Definitely. And it's a reminder to be sensitive, Past experiences, especially the bad ones, can totally change how someone deals with affection. Especially out in the open where it feels like everyone's watching.
Makes you realize everyone comes with baggage.
Yeah, we all have our own stories.
And that those stories can shape how we act in relationships.
100%.
Okay, moving on to cultural or social norms.
This is fascinating because it's about how different cultures express stuff.
Oh yeah, like what's considered cute in one place could be a total no-no somewhere else.
Exactly. And that can get tricky in relationships, especially if you're from different backgrounds.
So many things to consider. And finally, relationship status. This one seems pretty obvious.
It does. But it's all about where they are in the relationship. Like maybe they're not ready to go Facebook official yet.
Holding back a bit.
Yeah, maybe they're not sure about the future or how committed they are. It's like a way to protect themselves until things feel more solid.
So basically they're waiting for that green light before they go public with the lovey-dovey stuff.
Exactly. So we've talked about some of the reasons behind this private love paradox. Now let's dive into how it can actually impact a relationship.
Yeah, because it can't be all sunshine and roses, right?
Not always. Our sources highlighted some effects that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Lay it on me. What kind of emotional turmoil are we talking about?
Well, one of the big ones is confusion and doubt. When your partner's public persona doesn't match their private behavior.
Yeah.
It can make you feel like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Makes sense.
You start questioning things like, do they actually like me? Are they ashamed of me?
Those are some heavy thoughts.
Right? They can really mess with your head. And it can lead to some serious communication issues.
He's like, how do you even begin to address that?
Well, that's where open and honest communication comes in. And I don't just mean talking. I mean really listening to understand your partner's point of view.
Yeah, it's like you both have pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. And you have to communicate to put those pieces together and see the full picture.
I love that analogy. So it's not about fixing the problem, but understanding each other's experience.
Spot on. Now, another common effect is low self-esteem. It's tough when you feel unappreciated, especially in public. It can make you feel like you're not good enough.
Ouch. Yeah, that feeling of not being valued can be brutal.
Right. It's like all those romantic movies and social media posts set these crazy expectations.
They really do.
And when your relationship doesn't match that picture-perfect image, it's easy to start questioning your own worth.
Totally. It's a good reminder to focus on what truly matters in your own relationship and not compare it to some fairy tale ideal.
Couldn't agree more. Now, another thing our sources mentioned is that if this issue goes unchecked, it can lead to a strained relationship.
Makes sense. It's like that resentment just builds up over time.
Exactly. It's like a volcano waiting to erupt.
So what are some signs that things might be heading in that direction?
Pay attention to how you communicate. Are you avoiding certain topics? Are you feeling more distant from your partner?
Ooh, good point. Those are definitely red flags.
They are. And if you notice those patterns, it might be time to have a heart-to-heart.
To clear the air.
Exactly.
Oh.
Now, our sources also talked about lack of intimacy. as a potential effect. And we're not just talking about the physical stuff here.
Right. Intimacy is more than just that.
It's also about that deep emotional connection. When you're not feeling that closeness in public, it can create distance and affect intimacy on all levels.
Oh, I get it. It's like one thing leads to another.
Like a domino effect.
Uh-huh.
And finally, there's the classic culprit, miscommunication.
Always seems to be at the root of relationship problems, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
When we have these unspoken expectations about how our partner should act, especially in public, it's a recipe for misunderstandings.
And those misunderstandings can turn into arguments pretty quickly.
We can. It's like you're speaking different languages.
So we've talked about the causes, the effects. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But don't worry, we're not leaving you hanging.
There's hope.
Absolutely. Up next, we're diving into solutions. You guys send in some amazing tips, and we're going to break them all down.
Can't wait. Stay tuned. Okay, so we've talked about the whys and the hows of this whole private love paradox thing.
Right, we've laid it all out.
Now, for the part you've been waiting for, the what do we do about it part.
The solution.
You guys send in some awesome tips, and of course, our expert is here to break it all down.
Happy to share my thoughts. And remember, every relationship is different. So what works for one couple might not work for another.
True. So solution number 1 is open communication. Sounds simple enough, but I bet there's more to it.
You bet. It's not just about talking. It's about making a space where both people feel safe to say what they're feeling,
Safe to be honest.
Yeah, without feeling judged or criticized. It's also about really listening to each other, trying to get where the other person's coming from.
That makes sense. Sometimes I think we're so focused on getting our own point across, we forget to listen.
Happens all the time. A good tip is to use I statements.
Yeah.
Like instead of saying, "You never show me affection in public."
Which sounds kind of accusatory.
Right. It puts the other person on the defensive. Try saying, "I feel hurt and unappreciated when we don't show affection in public."
Subtly shifts the focus. More about your own feelings.
Exactly. Okay. Solution number 2 is build trust. Kind of a no-brainer for any relationship.
For sure. Got to have that solid foundation.
Absolutely. When you trust your partner, you feel secure knowing they have your back. And that makes it easier to open up about your needs.
So how do you build trust if it's kind of shaky?
It's about being consistent, being there for each other, showing up both physically and emotionally.
So like following through on your promises.
Yeah, and being emotionally available,
Yeah.
actively listening, supporting each other.
The little things add up.
Big time. All right, solution number 3, respect boundaries.
Super important when we're talking about PDA. Everyone's got different comfort levels.
For sure. What feels good for one person might feel totally awkward for another.
So how do you have those boundary conversations without making things weird?
It's all about approaching it with curiosity, not judgment. Like trying to genuinely understand where your partner is coming from.
Yeah, instead of being like, why are you so weird about this?
Exactly. Use phrases like, "Help me understand why you feel uncomfortable with," or "I'm curious to know more about your experiences with."
Opens up the conversation. Okay, what's next?
Solution number 4, gradual exposure.
Sounds kind of scientific, like a therapy technique.
In a way, it is. The idea is to start small with PDA.
So like baby steps?
Yeah. Instead of diving headfirst into a full-on makeout session in public.
Maybe just hold hands at first.
Exactly. Or a quick peck on the cheek. Ease into it until both of you feel more comfortable.
Makes sense. And last but not least, seeking professional help. No shame in that game.
None at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need an outside perspective to help you figure things out.
Someone who's not in the middle of it.
Right. A therapist can give you tools and strategies to navigate these tricky situations.
Totally. So we've covered a lot today. We've explored the causes, effects, and even some solutions for this private love paradox.
A lot to unpack.
It really is. What's the one thing you hope people take away from all this?
That there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to love and affection. What matters is finding what works for you and your partner.
Finding that balance.
Exactly. And creating a dynamic that celebrates your unique connection. So here's the question for you to think about. What does public affection mean to you? And what makes you feel truly loved and appreciated in a relationship?
Deep stuff.
It is no right or wrong answer, just something to reflect on.
Love it. And if someone wants to learn more, do you have a resource recommendation?
Absolutely. Check out The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's a classic for a reason. It helps you understand how different people give and receive love.
Great suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the private love paradox.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit empowering. Remember, relationships are a journey with lots of twists and turns.
They are.
Keep talking, keep respecting each other's boundaries, and never underestimate the power of understanding and compassion. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep those sparks flying.